Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're sitting in Los Angeles with an artist I met quite a while ago at this point, maybe like a year and a half, really in passing. And at the time it was like, hey, you want to do an interview quick? And I'm like, maybe, cool. And I saw his art, made sure immediately to put his name in my phone. And here we are, all this time later, actually kicking it. So really excited. Your art journey's gone quite a ways from then. So welcome to the show. Am I pronouncing this right? Miguel Pichardo?
Miguel Pichardo.
Okay, yeah. See, I have Wisconsin accent. Like, it's just not going to happen.
No
I'm trying.
worries, bro. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you.
How can people best find your work? I know it's Instagram's how I know you, which is, and just give me the handle. I'll mess it up.
So it's my last name, Pichardo, but instead of the P, it's a 9.
Gotcha.
The reason I chose the 9 is because my birthday, it's September 9th, 1992.
Oh, word. So you're younger than me. Young
By
gun.
2 years.
Yeah, I'm born in 90. So in your own words, who are you and what are you passionate about?
My name is Miguel Pichardo, and I'm passionate about my art. I'm passionate about making this world better, and I'm passionate about spirituality.
Hell yeah, dude. I mean, when you have like an actual purpose with your art. So my artist statement, because I've finally been like getting picked to do some art shows, and I did a couple murals back home, and like art's been taken off a little bit for me when I have time to do it. And the artist statement that I give, because they always seem to ask that, is I just want people to smile when they see my shit. Like, that's it. I don't really take my stuff very seriously. I started painting silly looking dumb monster things when I was depressed, because I was like, this is just not, it's not reality, and I can kind of like relax when I do this because it's just silly and stupid and happy and like it works. Yours is a bit more complex than mine. What would be like an artist statement for you?
Man, artist statements I don't like because it makes me think too much. I'm more about the flow, you know, but I've done so many. What would my artist statement be?
Yeah. What are you trying to accomplish with your art?
Self-awareness, more consciousness. I don't have one specific motive or thing I want to accomplish. Just
Sure.
like my artwork that's very eclectic.
Yeah.
I have many, reasons. Each piece is individual, you know?
Yeah.
So there's not one purpose. It's just I've been doing my artwork since as far as I can remember. I always say that. So I have a purpose.
Yeah,
if that's
of
what you're asking me. My
Yeah.
purpose is to help little kids that because as a kid,
Yeah.
I was going through depression.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I would draw those monsters. I would draw those things, you know,
Yeah.
as a therapy, as a way to zone out, as a way to leave what I was going through. So now that I'm an adult and I've been able to, reflect on my past, I've came to realize my purpose
Yeah.
and what would bring me the most satisfaction, the most enjoyment, and that would be to be that person that I was waiting on to help for other kids, you know.
Sure. And how are you going to do that? Do you like teach some things, or do you just want to do it through your artwork being available and people looking at it and thinking? Like, how do you help kids through your art?
By introducing them to art. When I was a kid, my art was cartoons. It was Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
I didn't know about Frida. I didn't know about Picasso, Degas, all these artists, right? And those are all inspirations to me.
Yeah.
So again, there's many ways where I'm gonna approach it. Where if I sell eventually in the future a painting for $1 million, I'm gonna take 600,000 of that and dedicate it to helping some type of organization or create an organization that's gonna help kids.
Sure.
In some sort of way.
Yeah.
So I think essentially I'm going to be the monetary income to create these platforms to help kids.
Well, and I think you're kind of like that missing piece between your Dragon Ball Z, your Pokemon type stuff, and then like fine art. You kind of like bridge the gap where I think kids could see your art and be like, whoa, I really like this. It's really cool. You know, it's got like some brightness to it. There's so much going on with it. Like it's very street arty kind of to me as well. I just enjoy the artwork quite a bit. But I think having something like that can pique the interest with kids when they look at it and say, oh, there must be more to it then. I have to ask, because I'm a huge Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z nerd. Like growing up, we all were our age group, right? Like every day after school, that's what you watched or whatever. You must have played Pokemon Red and Blue a whole bunch.
On the Game Boy?
Yeah.
I was a poor kid, so when I would play from my friend's Game Boy, or
sure.
My older brother had a Game Boy, I think, for a while, but he wouldn't let me borrow it. But I remember those games a little bit.
Well, who is your favorite Pokemon? And then for Dragon Ball Z, who is your favorite character? I'm just curious because I love those growing up.
Pokemon, I was just talking to my daughters about this, and I think my favorite Pokemon is either Ditto or Mew.
Why? Because they can do any like attack or what?
Because Ditto's just badass and cute, and what's his name? What's it called?
Mew?
No, the other one, Ditto.
Yeah, Ditto.
Ditto can turn into anything.
Yeah.
And become anything it wants. So I just think that's dope. And then Dragon Ball, of course, Goku.
Yeah. Okay.
Goku.
I went to Japan and they had this place called it was like Shonen Jump. I think it was called J World. Shonen Jump is the company that owns the cartoon like rights or whatever to a bunch of the major anime and manga like things, right? So like Bleach and Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and like all the like big ones like that, they own the rights to all that. So they had like a theme park in this mall that was like dedicated just to those things. It was rad. If you ever go to Japan, you got to check it out. Even like as an adult, I mean, it was mostly kids that were there, but even as an adult, I walked up and I was like, whoa, this thing is sick.
Have you seen I don't know if did he say Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Japan they have the Disneyland where they have that Tron ride. I think it's like the Space Mountain over here.
Oh,
it's
sure.
Dope though. I just want to.
Yeah, I got to check it out. So getting back to art though. So when I started doing art when I was a kid, the first thing I remember was like drawing Dragon Ball Z characters and stuff. You've been drawing since forever, but what are your like earlier memories of drawing? What were you drawing?
Ed and Eddie.
I love that show.
I was drawing everything. I was drawing Jesus, the Virgin Mary. I was drawing. I was inventing my own Pokemon. I would draw Ninetales a lot from Pokemon.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Did you end up kind of falling into doing all the art courses and stuff that were available pretty early then? Like middle school and stuff, taking all the different electives?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in 5th grade, I met who I call my best friend now, and her name is Susan Yanez. And she was a 2nd grade teacher at the time, but she was doing a after-school program.
Yeah.
Which was dedicated to visual art.
Yeah.
So the kids would stay up after school and just do art projects.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was in the playground waiting for my mom to pick me up while these kids were in this class. So anyways, they invited me. They're like, hey, Miguel, why aren't you in this class? You know, you're really good at art. I'm like, well, you never invited me.
Yeah, sure.
So they're like, well, come, let's go meet Ms. Yanez.
Yeah.
So that's when I met her. She goes, okay, join my class. So before that, I was waiting for my mom after school, like an hour, 2 hours, because she was a single mother.
Sure.
So going into this classroom was like a sanctuary for me because I was super sad in the playground by myself.
Yeah.
Anyways, I met her there, and she introduced me to all this art world, right?
Yeah.
She really saw the help that I needed, and she really saw my talent. So she really helped me a lot, and she's still very close to me.
How old were you at this point?
11 or 10. I was in 5th grade.
Okay, sure.
So then after that, I was more aware of artwork and how it could be taken seriously. Because in my household, artwork was just artwork. It was a hobby. It was almost like a waste of time.
Yeah, it wasn't a career possibility. That wasn't the thought.
At all. So, but even when I met her, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is going to be my career.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I was just getting more inspiration for my artwork.
Yeah.
Because I was drawing every day, all the time.
Yeah.
So after that, I was more aware, and I would take more my artwork a little bit more serious in that aspect where, I would choose art class for extracurricular.
Sure.
Yeah.
At what point did you kind of think to yourself, like, well, maybe I could be an artist, like, career-wise? Was it, like, pretty early on that you were like, you know what, this is what I want to do? Or how did that develop?
It was 5 years ago. I think it was like 2017.
Oh, yeah, so it took a long time to get to that point.
It took a long time. I was already a dad, and but that's the thing, though, because I was jumping from, like, hood to hood. You know, I was in Phoenix, I was over here in Cali, I was in Vegas. So I didn't have time to think about,
sure,
you know, what career I'm going to have. I was thinking about how am I going to get my next 2 shirts, because I only have 2 shirts in my closet I only have 1 pair of Chucks in my closet where I need to get another one. You know, I was preoccupied with surviving in that way. But 5 years ago, I was working, and I was just so frustrated because no job would satisfy me. I didn't want to be there, as so many could relate, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Why haven't I tried art?
Yeah.
Basquiat made... He's passed away, but one of his paintings sold for over 400 million.
Yeah.
I'm like, if he could do it, I could do it.
Yeah.
And then just went, bing, like... Why haven't you been doing it? But at the same time, I know it happened at the right time. It happened at the right moment.
Yeah.
Because that's my belief, that everything happens at the right time. Well, now that I'm older and I understand that. So 5 years ago, and it was little by little. It wasn't like I had a lot of time to dedicate it to it, you know?
Right.
But before that, I was already selling my artwork as a kid. You know, in my 5th grade class, my classmates were so into my art that they would say, "What do you want for it?" You know?
Yeah.
I'll give you $10. I'll give you $20, which is not a lot, but for a kid, it's a lot.
Yeah, of course.
And I think I was in 6th grade when I got invited to my first gallery exposition, which was a small gallery in Altadena, California, owned by Ben McGinty. And now it's called Ben McGinty's At the End of the World Gallery. And I've been showing with him ever since. So it was kind of like that. Like, I was selling my artwork as a kid, but I decided to pursue artwork as a career 5 years ago.
Sure. Well, then what happened through high school and stuff? Why didn't you have the idea that you wanted to... Because a lot of people are drawing through high school and whatever, and then their first thought is like, well, graphic design, or like they want to do something in art. A lot of times they don't believe in themselves as like just a full fine artist, you know, but they're like, I could do something with art for a career, and they kind of go down that path. How come you didn't do that?
I did. So what happened was, right after school, my mom was telling me, you know, Miguel, go to college. You got to go to college. You got to get a future for yourself. I'm like, yeah, Mom, but I don't know what to do, you know? She's like, well, do art. She's like, all right, I'll go into graphic design. So I did that, and once I got into it, it wasn't for me. It was a lot of computer work. It wasn't as raw as acrylic paint, oil paint, a canvas, you know what I mean? I like to just get into the work. Yeah, it's a very different style of art. Yeah, and I feel like with graphic design, you have to set it up, and for me, it's just like, let's get going right away. You know what I mean? Sure. Get into the flow. So I got into graphic design. I did like 2 semesters in Las Vegas. I was at the Art Institute in Henderson. Yeah. I didn't like it, so I dropped out of that. What do you call it, a major or whatever? And then I went to culinary because it was only a year and a half worth of school, and then you have a job when you get out. Sure. And in the middle of my culinary school, we got pregnant. Sure. So at that point, we said to ourselves, you know, me and my partner, we said, well, what's the plan? What do we want to do now? We have a kid.
Right.
And we said, well, we don't want to raise our baby here in Vegas because we don't like it here. We love it in Cali because that's where we're from.
Yeah.
So we moved out here.
Sure.
So we dropped out of college. We came to raise a family, basically.
What'd you do for work then from then on? Because, I mean, there's still then a pretty big gap of time, right? Between that point until you started doing, like, pursuing art full time. What kind of jobs did you do?
All kinds. I did a bunch of restaurants. I did a bunch of on-calls. I don't want to say all their names, but it was just like I was jumping around from job to job and
just making it work.
And it was just kept on getting worse where after every job I was just like, man, I hate this. I don't want to be here. I want to satisfy myself. I want to live, you know?
Yeah.
As corny as that sounds, it was really my reality. I was just in so much what do you call it, despair.
Yeah.
It was really bad. It was really bad because there was a lot of stress. So then I'm like, well, I'm just gonna put out my artwork on Instagram, you know, and if I sell some pieces, I sell some pieces.
And you were still painting during that whole time, just when you had time? Or
not really. I mean, I always painted here. I drew here and there. You know, if there's a cup in front of me and I have a pen, I'll draw on the cup. It's just instinctual. So I always did that, but for the most part, throughout my life, I would just throw away my artwork. I would never save it, you know, because I mean, throughout that span, right?
Yeah.
You know, if I would finish a piece and somebody saw it and they say, hey, I love that piece, you know, how much?
Sure.
I would sell it to them. But yeah, it was never like I would dedicate my time to finish a piece.
Yeah.
As in where now it's just like that's all I do. Every piece that I start, I have to finish and complete it.
Yeah.
So yeah, my life has kind of always been hectic that way until now. I'm trying to slow down and level things out. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always tell people it's never too late because everything that you've done is a stepping stone towards what you're gonna be doing, you know, whether you realize it or not. The different experiences you had at different jobs or whatever, you learn things from those jobs that are transferable skills in some way or another. Either it was like working with a different coworker that is like this personality was hard for you to work with, and then you encompass somebody else, or you encounter somebody else that has that personality in your next career and you now know how to handle it. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily cooking translates to this, but all of that stuff is, you know, are stepping stones. And then when you're older and you're like, okay, well, I want to take art as a career, you're just a little more mature and have a better understanding of the world. So you can strategize better how you want to do it. You know what I mean? It makes it a little bit more possible versus when you're younger, you're just reaching. Even if you're extremely talented, you're just reaching and you don't really know where to go. And a lot of people fall down that road, and there's nothing wrong with graphic design. It's dope. And I know a lot of people that love doing it, but it's not creatively free like painting as an artist, just making what you want to make, you know, which we'll get to that point. But it's commercialized. You're helping a client and you get to have an artistic, you know, vision. You get to do art, but it's very dictated as far as like, how is this going to help sell a product? Which is not the same kind of art that's freeing as like just grabbing a pen or grabbing paint in a canvas and just like doing something that way.
As soulful.
Yeah, it's totally different. You decided to create an Instagram account for art. Was that like the first conscious thing of like, I want to make art a career, this is like the first step, or why did you do that?
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay, so you created that, and then like, how did the journey go? Did you post one thing and it kind of started to go crazy? I imagine it was like a slow growth, right?
It was definitely a slow growth. So I started that way. I started putting my art out, and I wouldn't see much turnaround, you know? People wouldn't follow me, people wouldn't buy, and I just started learning more about art. I started watching more YouTube videos as I painted. I started looking at more art and stuff, so I started creating different art. I started creating bigger pieces. Like even now, I'm still not even creating huge pieces because it was just like kind of like my plan. I wanted to do like small pieces and really get into the flow of my art, because before that I wasn't really painting a lot. I wasn't really drawing a lot. I was just working, and I would just draw when I was watching TV, you know, just on the side. So there wasn't too much to it. It was just like little by little I became more serious about it, and I started seeing more of the, and at the same time I was also discovering more about myself.
Sure.
So it was just like that whole bundle was rolling, and I was just trying to make, organize it all or make sense of it all. And but yeah, like I said, I've always been selling my artwork, so it was never like a progression. It was always like, this is what I am.
Yeah.
Without me realizing it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure. So then how'd you start making money? What were the first things where where were you selling your paintings to? Because now you're like taking it more seriously. You're posting them on Instagram and stuff, and you're creating, but where are they all going? When the ones that aren't selling, are you just hanging on to them until like you do an art show thing, or was it all through Instagram? I mean, you've been in different art shows, places and stuff, right? So like, how did that develop?
Different ways. I would get reached out. I would reach out.
Sure.
At this point, I'm realizing. Well, I'm not even gonna say that. It just happened different ways. People would reach out through email, through Instagram. My landlord knew somebody that wanted a mural.
Sure.
I would do Craigslist at one point, and that's how I got a mural. And
what's the story behind that? I'm just really curious. Behind finding a mural on Craigslist.
I just posted up. I posted up. I do murals, and some dude hit me up in Boyle Heights, and he told me I want a Virgin Mary, and I went to go do it. And then after that, some psychic lady hit me up while I'm doing the mural. Hey, I want a mural in my shop. So, but I'm staying away from murals. It's too much, a lot of work, a lot of weather, a lot of sun.
Yeah.
I'd rather be home chilling.
And you can't do the same level of detail anyways with stuff that big, right? Because it would just take too long.
I mean, you can, but do you want to? I don't.
Yeah. Sure. So what was the first like big thing that happened that was encouraging? Like, okay, maybe this is going to actually work as a career. Did you have a moment like that?
Yeah, so I used to work, a lot of people from LA are going to know about Portals Bakery. I used to work at Portals.
Okay.
And no. Sorry. That was after. So I was working I was working in different hospitals picking up medical waste, and again, it was hell. I didn't like it. I hated it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna quit. I quit on the spot. It was that bad. I quit on the spot, and I had some money saved up, and I said I'm gonna try this art thing full on. I'm gonna paint nonstop. So what happened was, those 2 months that I spent painting and drawing, I was selling stuff, but it wasn't enough to pay my bills. So, me to myself, speaking to God, I was, give me a sign that this is what I'm supposed to do, and also at the same time, around that time, I was trying to figure out how to price my artwork. It's very difficult when you're beginning and trying to figure out how to price your artwork. So I said, all right, I'm going to sell this painting that I just finished for $2,000. It was a 2 feet by 4 feet. Oh, no, 2 feet by 3 feet. And I said, if I sell it, that's the sign.
Yeah.
So I posted it up, and within 2 hours, somebody hit me up, said, how much you want for it? I said, $2,000. And she's like, what do you do, 1,900? I'm like, okay. And then she's like, okay, and I want this piece and this piece too. So she ended up paying more than $2,000.
Right.
So I'm like, boom, that was the sign that I asked for. And before that, I had never sold a piece for that much money. As a kid, I would never imagine that, that's like a small little Honda or something.
Yeah.
And ever since then, ever since that point, I've sold a piece that same size for $3,000.
And this was through Instagram you posted it?
Yeah, pretty much all most of my sales are through Instagram. Really, that's why I don't pursue a lot of galleries now, because we have social media. You know.
Yeah.
But I have done a lot of sales through galleries, through festivals. So yeah, I mean, my what do you say? How do you say it? The things that told me that this is what I was supposed to do was the money. You know, was the outcome was. I don't know, just like there's many things that would tell me this is what you're supposed to do.
Sure. How did you, I think people in general undersell themselves often when it comes to art or creating, right? Because, so here's how art works, right? You can't, if you do like an incredible painting, say this $2,000 painting, right? And you go stand on Venice Beach and you hold it up and you just say like, I want $2,000. You got to be expecting that everyone that walks by is probably going to be like, no, I'm not going to pay that, right? That does not mean it's not worth that, just because all of these people don't want to spend that. And people are so afraid of rejection, I think, that when they put something out, they don't want to hear anybody telling them that they're overcharging, because they don't want to feel greedy. They don't want to like act like they have this big ego or whatever. But that's not how art works. Only one person needs to value it at that. You know, even the biggest artists like ever in the world, right? Like most famous people ever, the vast majority of the public wouldn't spend thousands of dollars on their work, because to them it's not worth that. So you got to be like willing to put yourself out and accept that most people aren't going to want to pay that. Did you struggle with that at all after that initial sale, or was that the sign that just told you like, okay, my art is always going to be priced this and then above? Did you stick pretty straight to that?
After that point, I didn't doubt myself anymore. I didn't, like you said, you almost feel like you're ripping people off, but you're not.
Right.
You're not, because your art could be priceless. Your art could be worth even more. So after that point, and then looking into more stuff, you know, you find out this person sold this for this much, and this person spent this much on this, and then you think, well, why can't they spend that much on a piece of artwork that might bring them every single day, you know, happiness, some type of light to their day. So I don't know if that answered your question, but those are the things that I would pay attention and would bring that like it would take away that fear almost. Just gaining more knowledge on the art world.
Yeah, I think changing your perspective on it, because if you look at like the general public, most people don't buy original art. And that's okay. A lot of people don't have the income to be able to put into that type of thing, or they just don't find the value in that kind of way, and they don't have to, and that's totally okay. You're not making art for every single person. You're making art for somebody, like one person that is going to appreciate this, because only one person can have that original painting, and that's totally fine. And I found with myself too that like in general, the supply and demand means if somebody's willing to pay X amount for something, that's how much it's worth, because somebody paid for it. Right? Now, if somebody paid you $2,000 for the one painting, and now every painting you make for the next year you're listing at $2,000 and nobody else is willing to pay it, then maybe you have to lower your price, I guess, because there isn't anybody else that wants to pay that. But 9 times out of 10, that's not what's going to happen. Somebody else says, oh, well, if this person thinks it's worth this much, then it is worth that much. Now I'm willing to pay that much. So it's just kind of how it goes. You just have to be okay with the rejection side of it. For somebody that wanted to pursue art, how would you tell them, like, what are the first steps to do if they wanted to try to start selling their art?
The first steps is get out there. I did it at a very young age. I would do the Chalk Festival in Pasadena, which is basically artists go out there and create pieces on the floor. Amazing pieces, right? Like masterpieces. And then they would give you 2 days to finish it. And after those 2 days, they'll wash it off, and there'll be a competition. But I was like, what, 12, 13 when I was doing these murals. So it was very nerve-wracking. It was very like, what are they going to say about me? You know, am I going to be good enough? But even as a kid, I was comparing myself to these adults. So now that I'm older, I realize, wow, it was just a mental thing. You know, why was I comparing myself to these grown-ups?
Right.
And it was just that strive. It was just that competitiveness of me, you know. And sometimes you have to like step outside of yourself and view the situation. So, you know, I would also say that to artists is like, let go of the fear. Let go of the fear. If you're at some sort of exposition, just enjoy it. Another very important thing is enjoy your artwork. It sounds so simple and so easy, but it's very difficult, and it can be. And I mean, everyone's different, but for me, it was very hard, and it still is. You know, it's like they say, like, don't wait for motivation, find it. As in, don't sit and wait for the right time to go paint. Go paint, but paint with the intention that you're gonna go have fun. You know, you're gonna go get into your flow state. You're gonna go meditate. You're gonna go enjoy yourself, relax. Always let that be the intention, because if you're seeking money, when you obtain that money, you're gonna realize, and you know, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna realize this didn't really satisfy my soul. Where, like, for example, there's a big difference when I create a piece that I created in 10 minutes, but I was completely submerged into it, and I sell it for $200. Where when I create a piece and I didn't enjoy it, it was more about what am I going to do to impress people.
Sure.
So, and I sell that piece for the same price. For me internally, I get more out of that other piece that I sold, more satisfaction, more accomplishment. So I think that's very underrated. And what I'm talking about is the actual process. Enjoy the process. Don't focus on the future. Focus on the now. Focus on what you're doing now, because what you are seeking is already here. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree. One thing, people, they look at who they're trying to sell to, and they're like trying to sell this product, right? They're like, well, what is this person gonna like? That's what I need to create. But the problem is if they asked you for your art, it's because they like what you like. You don't have to do something that they like. That's not why they hit you up. They like what you made without even thinking about them. So just like keep making what you want to make. You know, all of my art, and I don't sell my art for very much money at this point. It's still like I didn't even start painting till I was like 28, and I'm honored that anybody wants to pay me for my art. But for mine, I'm like very strict, you know, about my art. When somebody commissions me to do something like shoes, you know, you notice my shoes, and I painted those. I tell everyone the same thing. Well, I'm just going to do what I want on it, and if you like it, cool. But like I'm not going to do, you can't give me a suggestion of I want this pinup girl or something. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to paint whatever I want to paint in this moment, and hopefully you like it.
And what do they say?
I've never had anyone say no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everyone is just like, okay, cool. I think they just assumed that's what I was going to do. I don't know. Granted, my art all is like, if you've seen it, it has a style. Like, it looks like a certain kind of thing.
You know what's happened with me is that, and that's why I have my commissions closed. I don't take any commissions, because I've done commissions and they say, oh, well, I don't have the money now, so, or, I didn't really like this part. can you change it up? Like, I've gotten those type of things. I'm like, all right, I'm done with commissions. But so it's interesting that you say that and you approach it that way. So maybe I'll try that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what's worked for me. But everybody's different. I've talked to other artists that straight up don't do commissions for the same thing. They said it just affects the enjoyment of the process. It affects the creativeness of what they're doing. So they just don't touch it. So you've done a lot of different things with art. Like, not just paintings. I mean, I listened to some other interview a while ago, and you made one that was turned into puzzles, and you were doing stuff with that. And like you said, you've done murals, and you do like all these different things. Where are you going with your art? Is there a certain direction you're kind of trying to go with it? Like, is it specific? Like, are you trying to get into more oil painting stuff? Do you like to use a bunch of different mediums? Like, where are you kind of doing with it?
I like to use clay. I don't like carving. It's too heavy. It's too rough.
Okay.
It's too, I don't know. It's not my thing. I love oils. I love pastels. I love acrylics. Pencils, colored pencils. Those take a long time, but they're dope. But what I want to do, it's like I said, it's already here. It's me. It's just I want to keep on creating the gift that I have. Keep on. I just want to keep creating. No real plan as far as with my art. I'm not boxed in. Like, I'm not gonna create one style. I'm not gonna create one thing. I'm just gonna let it flow. And if I'm gonna do candles, if I'm gonna do puzzles, if I'm gonna do coloring books, if I'm gonna do reading books, whatever it is, if it's resonates with me and it feels right, then I'm gonna do it. But I'm not for sure. What I'm not gonna do is be boxed in by some type of expectation. Yeah. A lot of artists have told me, and not that they say this is the way to do it, but they always say, it's faster to get successful if you do one style. I'm like, but that's not me. I've always done different styles and different kinds and different mediums. So, and that's always what I've enjoyed, so I'm going to stay true to it.
Yeah, well, and art journeys are supposed to be different. Mm-hmm. Some people always do the same thing. Some of my favorite artists, their stuff is pretty simple, and it's all very much the same. And, like, that's okay, but there's other artists that do totally different things, and art's supposed to be just a journey for yourself, and hopefully other people want to hop along the ride and support you financially by buying your work. But like you said, it's supposed to be something that you enjoy. If you enjoy constantly pushing yourself and trying different styles, dude, it all ties back. And honestly, as much as like your stuff is different styles, I'm not the only one, when I've read other articles about you, that agrees that there are still parts of it that it's obvious that it's your work. So there is connecting to it, even though it's across different styles. And I think that's something really special. So I read a different interview with you, or I listened to a different one, something that's in it. You said that you felt you already died in this life once, but it was a long story for a different day. And I feel like this is the right day. So what's the story behind that?
Okay, so the story is I was in Vegas. I was living in Vegas, and I was in party mode. I was partying all the time with my homies and my friends and stuff. And I was bored. I didn't have no money in my pocket. So if I got a free beer, a free weed here and there, it's a yes, always, I'm a kid partying. So anyways, one time my homies come up, hey, Miggy, you want to smoke some stuff? I'm like, what stuff? And then they're like, it's legal. I'm like, okay, so it must be safe. It's not crack or anything. So they're like, yeah, you could even buy it at the smoke shop, and they let you smoke it out of the bong. It's like weed, but legal.
Okay.
So what it was, it has different names to it. They call it Spice, they call it K2. The one I smoked was called King Crypto.
Okay.
And it's basically in the smoke shop. A lot of people know about it.
Yeah.
And the smoke shop, it's labeled as an herbal essence or something, but we would roll it up and smoke it, right? And so the first time I tried it was at this smoke shop, and I'm excited because they're saying it's like weed, but they're laughing the whole way there. So I'm like, I didn't even pay attention to that. I didn't realize what was gonna happen. So we get there, and they load up the bong, and then they're like, yeah, Miggy, hit it first. So I take the biggest rip And then they're like, do it again. I'm like, fuck yeah. You know, I'm going to get super stoned. So I hit it again. They're like, all right, one more time. So I hit it for the third time. They're all big rips. Because I'm trying to take advantage of this opportunity, right? So they're still laughing. They hit it too. And we get out. And we go in a pickup truck. And we didn't fit. It was like 6 of us. So I jump in the back. And I'm not feeling anything yet.
Yeah.
We left the smoke shop. And I go in the back. And one of my homies, his name was Blink, and he's like, Miggy, are you how you feeling? Are you feeling it? I'm like, nah, I'm not feeling anything. So we're just chilling in the back, and he keeps on checking up on me. Hey, Miggy, you all right? I'm like, yeah. So eventually I get stuck. I can't move my head. I can't move anything. I'm just looking at the sky. And I'm like, okay, I'm stoned. Like, I'm thinking in my head, I'm stoned as fuck now. And then he goes, Miggy, are you feeling it now? And I can't respond to him. And he starts shaking me. Miggy, you all right? And I remember he shook me so hard that I was trying so hard to turn, and I turned to look at him, and his head was the size, like, you know those Airheads, the candy?
Yeah.
That's how he looked.
Sure.
He had a huge head. And then when he said, Miggy, it scared me. I'm like, whoa. So I turned back, and then that's when I went into space. I went, and I blinked out for like a second, and next thing I realize, I'm in a dark space. And I feel like like I'm being tortured or pulled apart, or something's going on with me, right? And I couldn't really capture what was going on. I was still in the adrenaline and the moment. I was tripping out. So then I'm freaking out, and I'm like, what the F is going on? So then I look down to try to see my legs, and I don't have any legs. And then I could kind of see like Earth, but like the aura. And that freaks me, I get freaked out, and that made me realize I'm dead. And I get into this, you realize you're dead. You can't imagine it until it happens to you. So then I'm like, I'm trying to cry, but I can't cry. I feel all the emotions, but I don't feel tears running down my eye. And I'm thinking, I'm dead. I can't believe this. Please take me back. Please take me back. And at the same time I'm doing this, I'm looking around, and I see stars in the distance. Like, it feels like when you're looking at the ocean and you feel the immenseness of it, but times a billion.
Yeah.
And as I'm looking around, I get launched again. Boom. It's like something. So I'm tripping now. I'm in a full out of body experience.
Yeah.
And I went through space. I went through different dimensions. I went through different parts of space, and I don't remember all of it, but I remember a lot of it, and I got a lot of spiritual messages through it. At the time, I was separated from the mother of my kids, right?
Yeah.
We had broken up, and I was super sad about it.
Yeah.
And in my trip, at a certain point, her hands come up. It's like all this energy out of nowhere, like this. I'm skipping a lot of parts, right? Because
sure.
I literally went through infinity. I literally went through everything.
Yeah.
And I can't describe it, and I don't think I'll ever be able to describe it. But there's a part of my trip where, like, so later on I realized that I was an orb.
Okay.
I was some type of orb of energy, which was my soul.
Yeah.
And so what happened at some point was because it was like, you know that movie with what's his name, Scrooge, or the Christmas, where they take
Christmas
him to
Carol.
different parts of of his life. It was kind of like that, but not in my life, in the universe.
Sure.
So I was being taken to different dimensions and different parts of the universe, And in one part, like her hands manifested.
Yeah.
And just through that, it told me a message. It told me she's going to come back and you're going to raise kids. And at that moment, I felt the energy of being a dad. But I wasn't a dad.
Wow.
So you got to keep in mind, around this time, I was depressed because she was gone.
Right.
So I was really desperate, you know? It was really something that I was wanting her to come back. So that was one of my revelations in the trip. Another realm that I got into was, it was like all orbs in different pastel colors, and I incorporate those in my art now a lot because I don't know their significance. I think that's what we become after we die. It's like the movie I just saw it, Soul from Disney.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Huh.
So at the end of this whole trip, something's with me. Some type of somebody's guiding me.
Yeah.
In this long blast off, right? And every time I blast off into another part, you could feel it. You feel like a rocket, like non-stop rumbling and craziness, right? And at the end of this crazy trip, I see this big universe-looking thing, but then we're standing there long enough that I get to see that what's being sucked into this universe are universes. And every time something gets sucked into it, there's like a boom, 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 and I'm very far away from it.
Yeah.
But I can still hear it. So then something tells me that's where we're going. And I'm like, oh shit, we're about to blast off again.
Yeah.
So we do. We go vroom, and we go into this huge thing, right? And literally as I go into this big thing, this white thing that's absorbing everything, there's like a blip. And after that, you go into a white light. Like you become nothing. Like you forget about humans, you forget about thought, you forget about memory, you forget about air, everything. Everything's gone. And this was the most intense part of the whole trip. Somehow. I don't know how. How is nothing the most intense compared to everything that you just went through?
Yeah.
But it was. So I'm just in this white space, and there's no consciousness. That's like the first time I ever experienced not having consciousness. And after that point, I come back. And I'm still behind the truck. There's gum all over my mouth. I don't know how I didn't die that way, because I would have suffocated. Because it was literally, the gum was sealing my mouth.
Yeah.
I had to, when I woke up, I had to peel it off my lips. And, my homegirls and my homies, the homies were laughing at me. But the girls were concerned. They're like, Miggy, we thought you died. What the heck? You were gone for an hour and a half. And I'm just I'm still dazed. Everything's blurry. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
I'm just traumatized.
Yeah.
And some of them started crying. That's how scared they were.
Yeah.
I think one of them told me, I didn't feel a pulse for a moment. Because she was taking my pulse as I was behind the truck. And then I came back, and I went straight home. I was so in shock that after I came back and I threw up.
Yeah.
I talked to them about it. They're like, what happened? What did you see? What happened? And I told them. And then after that, I started crying. It was just I can't describe it.
Yeah.
I just started crying. And it was like God's judgment. I went through God's judgment almost. Whoa, that's all I could say. It's just so anyways, I threw up. I don't know why I threw up a lot And after that, I felt better. I felt more into my body, but I was still pretty stoned.
Yeah.
So then I go home. I'm like too scared. I'm like, I don't even want to think about this anymore. It was that intense. So I go home and I sleep. The next day I wake up and I'm still stoned.
Yeah.
That's how strong it was. I go home. I mean, I go to school and I'm still like shook. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What just happened?
Yeah.
And ever since that day, I haven't been the same. I mean, it just changed me so much.
How did you change your mindset with your life after that? Like, what changed with the direction of what you wanted to do, how you process things? It just kind of make you realize
It
that,
just made me realize. I mean, it made me realize. It made me realize what happens after death. That's what I believe, right? I'm not here to tell anyone, what.
Yeah,
what,
sure.
What's gonna, you know what I mean? That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized, and it also made me realize how nothing's that serious.
Sure.
Nothing that you're gonna go through this life is that serious.
I think it just puts things in perspective, right? Where it's like life can be short or long, but for most of us, it's going to be a long time, and a lot of things are going to happen. And when you look back on something in 15 years, this random day that you thought was the end of the world because of, you got fired from this job, or, this friendship ended or whatever. And in the big picture, it wasn't a whole big deal, right? I feel like it helps you have a different perspective on it, where you can kind of like be a little bit more self-aware and, I don't know, like realize what's important and what isn't.
Well, the thing is, at that time, I was still a kid.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I didn't have that mature mentality to kind of process it in a mature way.
Yeah.
It was just like, whoa, I just went through something crazy. I didn't take the time to decipher it or anything until later on.
Yeah.
Where I thought about it more, and I was like, okay, it taught me more than anything, more than like some type of moral, it taught me what happens after.
Sure.
And that just brought a lot of inspiration. It's a lot. My artwork shows a lot of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have to know about me to really realize it, but that's what happened.
I feel like after that story, looking at your art, I'm gonna look at it in a different way. So now I'm excited to go back through the catalog and start looking.
And that's what I told you, bro. Like when we first met you, I'm like, I got some crazy stories you might like, and
Yeah.
that's the most crazy one. And I mean, like I said, there's like a lot more parts to that story.
Sure.
But my whole life has been very spiritual. It's like as a witchcraft, spirits. Now I'm getting more into like learning about meditation, about Reiki, extraterrestrials, all that stuff, and realizing how it all connects and who we really are. So, I think as a kid, I was always mature.
Yeah.
I was always, I never followed the crowd. I always like more rational than the average person. I was more, so it's not that I learned in that way from the experience.
Yeah.
I think I've been learning more now that I'm a grown up about how the spiritual world, how you can utilize it, and once you understand it more, how you could utilize it to make your own life better. Your physical life.
Sure. What things have you incorporated into your life from that have helped you?
That as in the trip, or just my
No,
spiritual...
about as you've grown spiritually. How has it benefited your life? How have you kind of changed what you do? Do you meditate more? Do you, like, what practices do you do?
Well, I think right now I'm really dealing with healing myself as far as like all the stuff that's happened to me in the past.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to fix that and then get in the role of like utilizing those lessons, and I'm doing it right now, but I'm
Sure.
also preoccupied with purging, a lot of things that I've been carrying for a long time.
Sure.
And what I've learned is how to perceive things in a more constructive, efficient, healing type of way. And like they say, like, take something negative and turn it into a positive. Instead of, if something bad happens to you, instead of getting angry, step back and use what you've learned to make a better situation or a better decision.
Sure. Yeah, and I think in general that kind of comes with maturity. I think self-awareness is something that, like, I've read a lot of random books on self-awareness, and I feel like of all the different things I've read as far as like self-help things, I went through like a year of reading self-help books for a minute. I went on like a whole thing of that, and self-awareness was the biggest one. Was just, I think most of us are just kind of going through actions all the time because we have so much on our plates that we're just like, well, we got to start checking off these things on our list, through our day or whatever. So you get up and you just start going. And I think what I learned that's like the most helpful is just slowing down enough to even think about what you're doing, so you have more intention in what you're doing. Even if you have 15 minutes or whatever in the morning with coffee or something, to just like, okay, what's on my plate for today? How am I going to get that done? Where do I want to get, and am I still going in the right direction? Or have I just been looking at my feet walking? You know what I mean? Instead of looking at where I actually want to be. And I think if you do that type of thing, that self-awareness, other people can get that vibe from you too. And they can see, you know what I mean, that because you're aware of what you're doing, you're aware of how they fit in it as well, and you're easier to work with. Does that kind of make sense? Or not so much?
The last part, you kind of lost me on the last part.
I'm saying when you're more self-aware because you've taken time to slow down and think about things a little bit clearer, I think you end up being more productive, and it's easier for other people to know how they fit in the whole situation too, because they know that you've slowed down enough to think about, like, this is what's actually happening, so I know how Miguel fits in within this, and I know where I'm going. Versus I think a lot of people, there's so much pressure and so much stress on them to get, X, Y, and Z done, that they don't really slow down to do that. They're just running. You know what I mean? And I think we could all benefit from slowing down a little bit. I want to get one more story out of you. I think when you do things that you're passionate about, such as artwork, you get to have really cool experiences that are really meaningful to you, whether it's affecting a certain person or achieving some kind of a goal, or painting your first mural or whatever. But you get to have these experiences that are just like, just really meaningful experiences to your life that help you feel fulfilled, make you want to keep going with what you're doing. Can you share a story of an experience like that?
Yeah, a short recent one. So, my fifth grade teacher was telling me about this kid in her classroom that never does his work, and she says he never finishes work. He's going through a lot at home.
Yeah.
And between me and her, I know what she's telling me, because when I was in her class, I was that kid.
Yeah.
I was that kid that was always angry, always mad, because I was all the things that I was going through, right?
Right.
And she was telling me, he's going through a lot of stuff, and when I used you, Miguel, as a like a reference in it was Latino Cultural Month or something like that. I don't know what you call it, Hispanic Cultural Month, and she used like Frida Diego Rivera, and myself and other Latin artists or people that might bring inspiration to these kids. So it felt good to be included in that. And anyway, she told me that this kid, she made an assignment, and this was the only assignment that he had ever finished, and that he chose my art as his what he was gonna do his assignment based on,
Yeah.
and And she said that he finished it under 20 minutes and that he was super excited about it.
Sure.
So that brought me to tears. It was just like, I did it.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I want to help.
Yeah.
So it was unexpected. It was so fulfilling. And unexpected because it was so soon,
Yeah, sure.
And it made me realize, like you were saying, slow down. Like,
yeah.
What you're seeking, you might already have it, but you're such in a rush to get to this, made up place that you don't realize that it's already there.
Yeah.
As in, like earlier I was telling you, that's my purpose, is to make this world a little bit better through helping kids, by bringing more nurture or more positivity in general. And so things like that, and there's these are the type of signs that I take, like you're on the right path, this is really what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Because
there's another teacher that I did a Virgin Mary piece, and she's in a Catholic school.
Yeah.
And she bought a piece for me, a print. It was an embellished print that I did, and she hung it up in her class. Yeah. And she says that another little kid, he wasn't troubled, but that he really resonated with it. And he says, he tells the teacher, I really resonate with this piece. I feel the presence of God, and this is what this means. And he starts describing the piece to her, and she's amazed. Yeah. And I'm amazed because with the specific piece that I'm talking about, I had a spiritual experience and she when she was telling me about this kid and how he would describe it, and she doesn't know what I went through. Right. But the little kid's basically describing perfectly the image, right? Mm-hmm. And what it stands for, and the passion for, you could really see the passion the kid has for the piece. She even sat him next to the piece because he would always stare at it. Sure. So of course I go back to my childhood and I think about myself. Yeah. And that's what I wanted, I wanted a cool piece of artwork next to my classroom. I wanted these type of things being brought into my life and more, so that's it.
Yeah, I mean, you never know who you're having what kind of effect on, what kind of scale. And sure, like as your things grow in your career, whatnot, supposedly more and more people are looking at your stuff, right? So your Instagram hits 100K or something, you have a ton of people that are seeing your art, but that doesn't mean that right now you don't have a lot of people that are significantly affected by your art as well, and it's hard. You're not going to even know a lot of those stories, which is is a really, really cool thing. Like with my show, I've had people tell me before, like I had one woman come into my store one time, and she was telling me how she's been listening to the show for quite a while, and she was working at like a laboratory but doing like commercialized stuff that she didn't really care about. And she said it was listening to the show that encouraged her and gave her the drive to leave that to start doing illustrations for children's books. And it was like, what? Like, how in the world? That's so rad. Mm-hmm. And I always think about like, okay, it's stuff like that where I'm like, okay, that what I'm doing with this show, like it has the potential to affect a lot of people in a really cool way. And then when I'm really tired and I'm like, I have way too many interviews scheduled to do whatever, like sometimes I do on trips like this, it's like, okay, it's absolutely worth it because of the stories that we get to share. Mm. It is time to get to the end of the episode. I want to ask again, where can people go follow you so they could see your artwork? How could they best support you moving forward if they wanted to buy a piece? Not everyone has $2,000 necessarily for something, but are there other ways that they can support you? Do you have, are there those puzzles or whatever that are available? Are there stickers and stuff they can buy? Like, how could they support you and follow your art?
Yeah, so I'm working on my website right now. It's almost finished. And, just getting the hang of it. But I mostly connect with people through my Instagram, which again is Pichardo. It's a 9ICHARDO. I'm also on Facebook, Arte or Miguel Pichardo's Art, and you could have like a like page. Yeah, but mainly it's just my Instagram. Yeah, please go follow me and just DM me if you're interested in any piece. If you want to support me, that's the way.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.